Now I'm gonna do one more example before leaving you guys to do practice on your own. And this example is gonna look scary at first, but it's gonna say a lot. So try to follow along, and you should be able to follow along. So let's say you're given 12x squared plus 20x plus 8 equals 0. Find solutions. Now this is scary because we haven't really dealt with anything that isn't a 1 here. These are big numbers. There's a lot of like there's a lot of things, a lot of different pairs of numbers that multiply together to give you both 12 and 8. A lot of numbers that add together to give you 20. It seems like a lot of work, and it would be, but we need to learn to find some patterns here. So let's go ahead. Too high. Okay. Let's go ahead and start with our brackets. There we go. Equals 0. And something to take note of. When you have, let's go back up here. When we had a positive c right here, this is plus, there's only two ways that this number can be positive. That is, if both these two are positive or both these two are negative. You can see up here, where is it? Right here, this is a negative. And that's because when you multiply this negative by this positive, you're going to end up with a negative number. When you multiply a positive by a positive, you're going to end up with a positive number. So that's one way to figure out what these two signs are. But then of course you're saying, well, hey, that still gives us two options. If it's positive, then they're the same sign, or if it's negative, they're different signs, like up here. The other way to figure that out is this middle term. If this middle term is positive and this last term is positive, then both these are positive, because if this term is positive, they're both the same, and if you add two of the same sign together, you're gonna end up with a positive if they're positive, or a negative if they're negative. So positive, positive, they're both positive. Negative, positive, they're both negative. Up here, if this is negative, then it's positive, negative, and then there's no real way to figure out which one is which, except for by doing all of the options out. So using that pattern, we can see, hey, this is positive and this is positive, so both these have to be positive. There's nothing we can multiply, there's no two numbers that we can multiply together to give us a positive 8 that you can add together to give us a negative number. So both these have to be positive. So that helps a lot. Otherwise we'd have to do pages and pages of the steps that we've already done, because 12 to get negative 12, or to get 12, you can get negative 12, negative 1, 12, 1, negative 6, negative 2, 6, 2, etc. It's a lot more work than what we really need to do. So let's go ahead and start the same way we started before. We don't really know. We can't say this is x and x because it's not. It's some variations of the 12 and the 1. But one thing we can say is that because we know that both these are positive, these last two terms have to be either 8 and 1 or 4 and 2. And now we can branch these off into their own little branches to figure out what this first number is. Remember, this 20x, we have some number here, a plus b, and then cx plus d. Remember, this 20x is just these two plus these two. So we have to multiply this by, we have to multiply this, or this number, by some number here, x, and then the same for this number on the opposite side. So let's figure out what factors 12 have. That's positive 12. So 12, 1, 4, 3, 6, 2. Now remember, because we're again multiplying these in this fashion, order does matter. This can be 12 and this can be 1, or this can be 12 and this can be 1. So, the opposites. And 112. Now what we have to do is multiply this 8 by this 12, add it to this 1 by this 1, and we do this with all of them, of course. And we have to try to find one of these combinations that when you add those together, you're going to get this middle term 20. So 12 times 8, that's 96. You can do that with the calculator if you want. Plus 2 is 98. 4 times 8 is 32. Plus 4 is 36. And I'll just do the rest of these kind of quick. I already wrote them down. So you can do the rest of these by yourself, in your head, or on paper, or with a calculator. 28. 8 times 1, that's 8, plus 12 times 1 is 20. Hey, look at that. That's exactly what we're trying to look for. Alright, so now we have to figure out the order. First of all, we can put this 8 and this 1 down, because that's what we know is there. So, we multiplied the 8 by a 1x, of course. So, that 8 needs to be put, this 1 needs to be put here, since it's multiplied with the 8. So, x. Multiplied by, we multiplied the 12 by the 1, just like we did here. The 1 goes here, so the 12x goes over here. And that is a successful factorization. Of course, we're not quite done. First of all, it's especially in something that took this long to do, it's really good to check yourself. The best way to check is, of course, just to go back and do it again, like refoil this. So I'm gonna go and write it down again. 12x plus 8, x plus 1. When you FOIL that out, that's what, 12x squared plus 8x plus 12x plus 8. Of course, that's 20x, and that's exactly what the original question was. So that is a successful factorization. But of course, we're not done, right? The question is, what values of x satisfy the equation that this equals 0? So we set each of these equal to 0, because of course 0 multiplied by some number is still 0, equals 0. So 12x equals 8. So x equals 8 over 12. That of course can be simplified to 2/3, right? Yes, 2/3. Then the other one, of course, is a lot easier. X plus 1 equals 0, so x equals -1. So the solution set for this equation is that x can equal 2/3 or -1. And that's all the examples I'm going to show you today. The best way to go about this, I know this is probably really confusing, especially this last problem, but the best way to go about this is to go in your book or go online to find some examples and just work them out. Working examples out by yourself is really the only way to get better at factoring, and it's kind of sad, and you guys kind of have to trust me. And I know that's a terrible thing to say. I know I hated when my math teachers always just said, just trust me, it'll get better. But this is one of those cases where it's very, very true. You just have to trust me. I'm going to be putting, a lot of people are going to be asking, well, how does this affect me in my real life? When am I ever going to be factoring? Well, I'm going to be doing a real life example in a different video, and I'm going to be linking it right down here somewhere. And in there, I'm going to be doing, it's going to show you why factoring is an extremely valuable tool that you'll use both in your higher mathematics classes and in your real life everyday situations.